Welcome to Connecting the Community podcast. I am your host, Marge Andre. I will be connecting you to people, organizations, and events that create community. I am creating this podcast in Richmond Hill, an eclectic and very culturally diverse community with lots of trees and streams and interesting people, just up the hill from Toronto. On this podcast, I'm talking with Jeff Scott, the performer who stars in the upcoming show, Epic Elton, at the Richmond Hill Centre for Performing Arts. The show is on October 7th at 8 p.m. Now, I don't talk with many of the performers that are at the theater, but since Jeff is a Richmond Hiller, I thought I'd like to. Welcome, Jeff.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. No, Jeff, I'm very glad we found some time to have this conversation. Now, Jeff, how long have you lived in Richmond Hill? Did you go to school here?
I went to high school. I came to Richmond Hill in grade 10. I was born in the Beaches downtown. Spent a little time when I lived with my parents in North York, and then came to Richmond Hill with them, of course. It was right at the tail end of grade 9. So we're talking 41 years ago.
Okay. And what high school did you go to?
So I went to Langstaff.
Okay.
Langstaff Secondary, yeah, which is now French Immersion, and it's a much bigger school than it was when I went there. But
yeah, very good.
There was under 600 students there when I went.
Well, yep, things have changed. Okay, yes. Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, did you take music, drama, acting lessons?
Yeah, so when I first started out, I always had a good musical ear, but basically when I was younger, it started with piano lessons, like it often does. I was in grade 2 of school. My parents enrolled me with lessons at the school, and that gradually, fairly quickly morphed into, after about a year, I went to Royal Conservatory, and I graduated to a proper conservatory teacher, and I did that for 10 years. So I'm classically trained, and I got to grade 7. You're always supposed to try to get to grade 8 because then you can teach. But by then I was 17 and discovered a few other things in life, and piano lessons went on the side a little bit. But I did enough to learn the proper way to play and the proper technique. So I'm glad I did it all, but I did learn a lot more after the lessons as well, like most professional musicians do. Is similar in whether it's guitar, drums, whatever it is. You tend to learn more with the practical aspects of being a musician.
Right. So how did you come about doing this show, Epic Elton?
So I guess when I finished at Langstaff, I went to York University.
Okay.
Not for music. I did for history and geography. I had a double major. It was geography first and urban planning, really. But I was also playing piano bars downtown and in some Richmond Hill. We were one of the earliest acts to ever play at can I say the name of a business in Richmond Hill I'd like to promote? Archibald's Neighborhood Pub. Yeah. We used to go there when it was a pizza place, so that's how old we are. But in 1988, we did there was fun nights there with Tom Barlow, who's a Grammy nominee now, and he used to run a jam night, and that's how it kind of got started. Those kind of places, and downtown playing the piano bars, and people just saying, "Oh, you sound more like Elton John than anyone else." So early 80s into the 90s. And then 1995, I hooked up with a music manager and we started the Elton John tribute.
Ooh, so you have been doing it for a while.
Yes, over 28 years.
Wow, yeah. Amazing. Okay.
I don't like to think of it that way, but yes.
Okay. Now, were you always an Elton John fan, and did you ever get to see him live?
I was always a fan of all the piano-based artists like Elton John, Billy Joel. I was probably a bigger Billy Joel fan growing up than Elton John, and then Bruce Hornsby later, and a few other jazz players, and I like all the classical players as well. But because it was more because of the voice, my voice sounded more like Elton than anyone else, that it sort of naturally flowed from there. And I have seen him many times. I probably saw him every time he played in Toronto. The same with Billy Joel, and the same with, Paul McCartney. There's a few other ones in there I would always go to see. from the mid 80s until very recently. I think the only shows I missed for Elton John were when I was working or when I knew he would come back at the end of the tour and play again.
Mm-hmm.
So I did go to this most recent tour. The last time at Skydome, I went with my drummer together, and we saw his last concert ever in Toronto at the Dome. So that was a fun night, and he was there for 2 nights, and it's 50,000 people. It was a bit crazy. And then that was also the day, interesting enough, that the Queen passed. So the Queen, we woke up that morning knowing that by lunchtime we knew that the Queen had passed away, and we were wondering, oh, maybe he's going to cancel the concert because they were, he's so close with the royal family. You never know, but no, everything went on as planned, and then he did dedicate the song "Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me" to. He was talking about the Queen, did the dedication, and then said, "This is for Mum." That's how he said it. So that was interesting. So it was fun.
Yeah. Okay.
But we're glad that it went on.
Yeah. Very good. Well, I'm glad to hear you have had many opportunities to actually see Elton perform in person. So, Elton is a performer that I associate with someone who is not older adults. I will not use the word senior. So older adults have an affinity for him. But I was just asking my 30-something sons, you heard of Elton John? And they said, well, yes, I heard about him in Family Guy and on The Simpsons and in some movies. Yes. So he is well-known, well past that generation. But
yes, and it's very interesting because just to add to that, on the most recent run of shows we've been doing, and I do band shows and solo shows and all kinds of different types of shows. Sometimes I work with other performers. The audience is actually getting more diversified and younger because I did some shows in Halifax last year, and on the East Coast, it was more noticeable. Whole families, 3 generations were coming. So you had the grandkids, the parents, and the grandparents, because there's all the older generation, as you say. Yeah. I try not to say the seniors, but there's the original generation that grew up with Elton John. But then there's the 1980s version of Elton John fans. So when he came out with "I'm Still Standing," and I guess that's why they call it the blues. So that's 40 years ago. The 70s was 50 years ago. But then also in the 90s, there was the Lion King stuff. So we have a bunch of people who saw that in the theaters as kids who are now about 30. Mm-hmm. So they're coming in, and even younger. Yeah. And then now he's had a couple worldwide hits with Dua Lipa and Britney Spears. So now there's teenagers coming. That never happened 10 years ago. None of that happened 15, 20 years ago. But the audience is literally getting younger as they get older. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Okay. Do you have a favorite Elton John song?
I get asked that a lot. And really only is one song that I never get tired of. I get tired of a few of them. But your song, it's a little bit funny. I think I was playing that when I was taking piano lessons. I think before I was 10, I learned that song. So I've been playing that song for a long time. And I never get tired of that one. We do a nice version of it with the band and without the band. Mm-hmm. The songs that we tend to play every single show, like Crocodile Rock, sometimes can be a little tedious for us. But as soon as we start that song, the audience goes crazy. They come to life. They're always going to be singing along and dancing. So any negative thoughts go immediately out of your head, and it becomes a fun sort of situation. But that's a song. I don't think I've done a show where I haven't played that song.
Okay.
Sure.
So we'll hear it on October the 7th. Okay.
You will hear it. Okay. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. I do think of Elton John as a flashy dresser. Do you play the part? Do you make a few costume changes during the show?
Absolutely. Yep. There will be costume changes at Richmond Hill. There'll be a lot of sequins. The running joke is you can always tell where I've been because there's a trail of feathers all through the change room or at the piano. Sometimes, people from the front row will wait till the show's over. They leave and then they look over and they see all the pile of feathers underneath my piano bench and they sneak up and try to grab them and come back. So it gets interesting, but with the feathers, because they're hard to clean up and it's hard to pick them all up. But yeah, there'll be glasses, hats, feathers, sequins, shiny things.
Okay. Okay, sounds like
Heavy,
fun.
very heavy jackets. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Now, do you do other shows? Is it just the one Epic Elton show that you focus on?
Okay. Well, yeah. Usually it's Epic Elton. For many years, by the way, the show was called Betty and the Jets. Also, so Epic Elton has been around for about 2 years because I just wanted something more specific and not a song title of the artist. So, and just within Elton John, I do all kinds of shows, like so, with the band, without the band. We do a lot of corporate shows, private shows. Elton's a very versatile tribute to do because I can walk into someone's living room and basically play their own piano for a birthday party or something like that. So people who have the means will have a fairly high end uh, gathering, and if they hire someone like me, they want to, they want a proper show. But I don't have to have the whole band. I can have live tracks that have the band pre-recorded. I play and sing just as I normally would. Um, and recently, I've been doing some sort of higher end. I do substitute in for Benny Anderson in a group called ABBA Revisited. It's an ABBA tribute. They are a worldwide tribute. They are very, very good.
Yeah.
I just spent the early part of the month, almost 2 weeks. We were in the Philippines with them. So both of us travel quite a bit. Last year I was in Hong Kong and we did Philippines. Previously I was in Dubai, and I don't know, I did some shows in Cuba many years ago, Korea, South Korea. So most of our shows are in Canada and the US, but sometimes international travel fits in there too.
Wow, that's very interesting. So,
yeah,
I was wondering. I watched one of your YouTubes, and I wasn't certain if I would you'd see at the show more. Is it just you on stage?
No, this is Richmond Hill, the Performing Arts Center. That'll be a full band show.
It's a full band.
Full band. Some of the YouTube videos are the solo show. Yeah, just to show, help promote different kinds of shows. But that's a full band show. There's also a full video presentation on a big screen. And we've been to a lot of theaters across the country, and the audio visual presentation at Richmond Hill is almost one of the biggest in terms of the screen size and the screen quality. It's very, very nice. Okay. So there's something else to look at other than just us on stage or just me. Even if it's just me, a couple songs I do alone without the band, but then there's visuals, maybe for Candle in the Wind, and there's Marilyn Monroe, or there's a lot of different things to look at on the stage when we're having our fun up there.
Okay, I was wondering what the show would actually be like. So yeah, have you performed at the RHCPA before?
Once before. It was always a running joke because both my kids went to Alexander Mackenzie, the art school, and they both one did drama, one did music. Not to a crazy extent. Neither of them are following that now because they're a little bit older, but they have played there multiple times. And me, supposed to be the professional musician in the house, I hadn't played there until 2 years ago. And they had already played there half a dozen times each by then. So yes. I've got some catching up to do. That show was a solo. That show was with an Ed Sheeran tribute. So it was a bit of a different, it wasn't called even Epic Elton. It was a different show touring. Okay. And that was the very first show back at the theater, interesting enough, after COVID. So COVID, after the year and a half off, the theaters, most of the Canadian theaters were shut down even a little bit longer. So everything was basically in mothballs. You had to pull everything out fresh for our show. There was a few technical glitches, but it all worked out well in the end because those guys are really good there.
They are,
but, yeah, the whole crew, the guys and girls, a fantastic staff. But that was still in the days when you had to have not just masks, but you had to have ID and your vaccine status just for us to get in the back door to do sound check. Right? It was very careful and social distancing, and I think it was half capacity was max, but on top of the social distancing, that made it about a quarter capacity only. So we were lucky to get the shows in. Yeah,
you were. Yeah, I like not to remember those days. So glad that's behind us.
No, I know. Yeah. Okay. I was one of the lucky ones because I could cross the border, and the U.S. opened a little earlier than we did, so I could do some shows over there, some good paying shows, as if the Americans were going to do them. So. My visa hadn't expired yet, and a lot of other guys, their visas had expired, and I could work there legally for several months before anyone else could. So it benefited me. It was just it was fortunate the way it worked out, but it did help out a lot at the end there.
Okay. So, we're talking about the Richmond Hill Center for Performing Arts.
Yes,
I have a very high regard for it. I believe it's a real asset to our community. I have
definitely.
enjoyed it many times. So, what makes a place a really good place to perform? Like, what do you like to see in a place?
Well, first of all, yes, I agree. Richmond Hill is, and Richmond Hill, the town of Richmond Hill is not huge, but it's fairly large compared to. We were just in southern Manitoba last week, and we played in Winkler, Manitoba. And, Winkler, Manitoba, there's a big sign that says, Manitoba's fourth biggest city, but it's only 13,000 people. Right? And we played in another town even smaller,
Oh,
a few of them, and they were, tickets were selling out, and it was nice. And some of these places have nice, much smaller theaters, but the Richmond Hill one, as far as a community type theater goes, is one of the best. The acoustics are good. The stage is the right size. It's not overly large, overly small. For me personally, they have a piano. They have a Steinway piano, so that's good for my show, and it doesn't get used probably for all the shows, obviously. And also it's the people who work there. They really care about what they do. I've been exchanging emails with one of the tech people there this week, and they really want to get everything right before you arrive. So they take care of us. They take care of the show, the way it looks, the way it sounds. So it's always knowing that they care about what they do makes it more fun for us. It makes it less, not stressful, but less. It's just easier when
mhm.
you're gonna walk in. You don't have to worry about this and that. It's being taken care of, and anything you need, they have.
Mhm. Okay.
So it's been from my experience and all the times I've been there, even with the kids before my own shows, it's been a great experience.
Okay. Well, thank you for that perspective because I'm usually in the audience and it's a few times I've got to be on stage, but yeah, I'm usually in the audience and you take so much of what happens for granted, and that's good. So,
Yeah, you do, and it's all in the hands of a certain amount of people, and they if they do their job well, it always works out. And sometimes it's not always like that.
yeah.
And we travel quite a bit, like I said, in a lot of theaters in North America, and a lot of them are volunteers too. A lot of people who aren't actually the technical people. A lot of them are volunteers, and without them, some of these shows just couldn't happen. So
Mhm.
I always like to point out the volunteers during the
Yeah.
show as well.
Okay. Very good. So, is there anything else that you like to add, like to say about this show and such?
Um, no, I just think it's like I said, it appeals to so many people. If you're thinking about coming, come on out. We'd love to fill the place up. We got some balcony seats available that we'd love to have people in. But as far as the show itself goes, I mean, we cover 51 years, I think 52 years inclusive of hits of Elton John hits. We try to get as many hit songs in there as we can. Of course, you can't get them all in. There's so many hits. My stage line is people will yell out they yell out requests, and I say, well, we have 45 minutes and we have 45 albums to choose from this set, right? So it's not always possible to fit everything in. And a lot of people like the ballads. If I asked what your favorite song is, they're going to say, Candle in the Wind or Tiny Dancer. They're all ballads. 9 out of 10 will be ballads anyway.
Mm,
So if we do everything they want, it'll just be a slow night. And nobody wants the ballads have to be there, the important ones, and they all will be. But you can't do that for the whole 2 sets worth of songs, or
right.
it bogs it down a little bit. As much as people want to hear it, even they want to get up and dance a little bit and sing. There'll be sing-alongs, and there will be certain sections to clap and put your phone lighters on and all that kind of stuff. So it's generally works out really well for a nice mixed crowd. And the crowds, like I said, they're not as old as you think. It's middle age is very popular now with the middle age crowd. So
Okay, very good. So, and it sounds like there's 2 sets, intermission. You can go get a beer, come back, and enjoy the second set.
exactly, and it all depends on the beer sales, how long the intermission will be,
Okay.
and the washroom break, of course.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I do like to end podcasts asking the same question of all guests. Name one thing you really like about this community.
Okay, I was thinking about this because I can't name just one thing.
Hmm.
I can name two quick things.
Okay.
But the one thing, we live in the Mill Pond area, Mill Pond community. That's where we live, and we've been here for 21 years. It's my wife and I, and my two daughters grew up here. One has moved out. They're both in their 20s. But the one thing I really want to say is our particular street in our particular neighborhood, and I'm not going to name it, but it's a crescent, so there's not a lot of through traffic. Everyone on our street is about the same age. Our kids were the same age. They've all grown up together. In fact, my daughter, who lives at home right now, is out with that same group of people that they just moved out. They just got married, two of them. It's such a great community. David West, Councillor David West was our representative for a while, and now of course he's the mayor. We went to school with David at Langstaff.
Okay,
I think we're a year apart, but
yeah.
In his previous career, he was a very high-end wedding photographer, and he actually did our wedding in 1994.
Okay.
So I don't want to mention the mayor anymore, but he's a friend of ours. He says he knows our street by name because we're such a community-oriented street. We all like the same things about the area. No one's moved out. They're all still here. All the kids are still friends. So that's the first thing. It's just we love our street and the surrounding couple streets. And we're really close to the Alexander Mackenzie High School there, and near the hospital. And the other thing is I love Mill Pond. That's the second thing. And Mill Pond is, when I went to Langstaff in the 80s, we actually performed at Mill Pond in 1985. We've got pictures from that when the stage used to always be on the ice because the winters were cold enough to guarantee it would be frozen, and now it's not like that anymore. But through the years, even when I didn't live exactly here, when I lived with my parents, always we went to Mill Pond, summertime, winter carnival. And now it's become my office, my office outside the home, because my wife during COVID, she was working from home full time. And at the end of COVID, I started working again full time. So we're competing on the phone in the house for the same space. So I just kind of grabbed my stuff, put it in my backpack, walked or took my bike to Mill Pond. And that became I have a certain picnic bench I always went to, and that was overlooked the water. And that was my home office, my outdoor office, whenever the weather permitted. And that's, all summer. Yeah. And we were my whole family and I were on the cover of Neighbors of Richmond Hill magazine, which was nice. They contacted me, and the publisher came to one of our shows. And he put the photo of my home office in the magazine because he thought, well, that's great. That's like one of the greatest advertisements for not just for me, but for the pond, right? And a lot of people do that now. You can just see them out there with their earbuds talking or writing or whatever they have to do on their laptop. And it just became such a great place. And it's such a connection from now back to 1982 when I first moved here.
Okay. I love that. I often go to the Mill Pond. Was there yesterday, so it is all great that and
I was there the other day too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, always good. Actually, I saw David West at the Mill Pond Gallery. They had a special show, so he was there and such. And I think the week before I had on a guest from that do international folk dancing at Mill Pond, and I was convinced to go and do international folk dancing there too. So it is a popular spot for lots of things. So
yes.
Jeff, very much enjoyed this conversation. I hope the show goes so well. And again, I'll put the link for getting tickets and for your website in the podcast notes. So thanks again, Jeff. Thank you for listening. I would very much appreciate you sharing this podcast. Please tune in next week as we continue to explore the community. Consider emailing me at Marj, M-A-R-J, at marjandre.com. I welcome suggestions for podcast guests. Stay well, stay connected.